you got to read through those. I will entertain a motion to accept those minutes or approve those minutes as permanent record.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion and second to approve the minutes. As written. All those in favor, let me know by saying aye. Minutes, that motion is approved. Minutes are permanent record for finance committee. Next we'll see on our agenda for tonight, we'll look at the trustees cash balance statement for February.
That's a 1.7. She's the one that you go through the social.
Any questions there on trial balance, on trustee balance? I'm sorry. I would mention what I had asked there. I just asked when I was 127, 128, which is where our ARPA funds are setting, which the park is still sitting there. We know it could take a bit of time before that's finalized. I was trying to find out what that interest is currently gaining at this point for that piece force, just to see where we are and how that's being bid out, I guess we would say in that case. So something I will find out for us and bring back to us in our next meeting. If nothing there, next sheet, you'll see comparison of from the last 2 years. It's good to see property tax coming in strong. Be great to see 108% where we know we got it all on it, right? But be nice to see all those funds come in. It's great to see that we at least met our budgeted numbers. Any questions there on comparison? If not, we'll move on. 101 general fund. Looking at first at revenues. Anything draw anyone's attention there on revenues? Just bring our attention, keep thinking that 41,520, which is building permits for the county. Notice it is coming a little short at this point, where it might we expect it to have been in the past. That's been coming up stronger, so it even maybe a little bit more negative than we've been seeing there. I'm going to look back on that one today. In a second, we'll see the urban service is coming in.
That's doing good.
It is, but you know, that's in your town area, so it's a. We do know some apartment buildings and things that may be changing in town, so I would assume that's got most of those reasons. Moving on to expenditures in 101.
So, 4 guards, budget, but.
Any concerns in the one-on-one expenditures? Notice we're coming in about 50%, where we're at about 2/3 of the year, which is always good to see. Revenues were at 80% and expenditures are at 50%. Might mention there, I noticed the agriculture extension service is coming in under on that piece, but I know Mr. Evans has had some individuals change and transfer out of that. He had hired 2 last year, and those 2 have both left him. He's in the process of trying to hire again, so I'm sure that's got a piece of that. He and I talked the other day. He's got interviews coming back in the last week of March, so next week.
We also pay their salary on a quarterly basis.
We had increased it last year. I think he was hiring a 3rd individual, and he only had himself there currently, so that will be a reason it's coming in under. If not, moving into 111 revenues.
That cable TV franchise that come in, when does that come in? Is that once a year?
It'll come in March, and so we won't see it until April.
Any other line items we want to discuss there in the 111 revenues version of it? If not, looking at expenditures again here, the comparison of these 2. Revenues are at 81% budgeted and expenditures are at 42%. Good to see. Here they'll start catching up in the next few months there. Moving to 116 solid waste. The 4270, is that business tax? Is that a
So a lot of the business tax comes in later in the year around May and June.
And excuse me, Amy, I didn't mean to interrupt you. The business tax, I was noticing it on some of the other funds, it's lagging across the board. So
Right, so when we get the business tax in, it's
it's
divided.
just something, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
right? Once thing look pretty strong there, moving to 118 ambulance. On the back of this, you also have a breakdown. That breakdown is going to be expenditures. Any questions or concerns?
I see the overtime still running way over.
That line item 187.
Yeah,
That is with our 20,000 monthly that was put in. So it was at 80% last month. And we added 20,000, so changed that in that budget amendment. Now it's at 93. Keeping in mind, each employee roughly has 56 hours of overtime scheduled for the each month. So you're looking at a few months still of that coming our way. We'll have March, April, and May and June, they're still on that budget, so it's that 20,000 that was input into there, it's still moving from 80% to 90% in that time.
it's gonna go way over.
That's exactly what I'm saying there. In this case, it's gonna be quite a bit over. However, on the positive side, currently, right now, the expenditures is running at about 61%, so a little bit under about 5% under.
I don't think anyone's talked to the city's trying to make any reconciliation with that or give us some idea what's going on.
I think EMS committee has met on those things a few times, and I know there's been some discussion, but I don't know if they've gotten to a solution at this point. Ms. Overman, would you, since you're here with us, I would give you.
Ask the questions.
We haven't got anywhere in this
We
case.
ask the questions. He's really good at not answering.
Has the overtime slowed up in the last couple of weeks or month, or is it still like it was? I mean, it's hard.
They made some minor adjustments.
They haven't met a few months, does it?
I know the conversation came up in the EMS committee I was at, about PRN work. If that conversation, has it moved anywhere further? Not at this point that we know of.
I think they made it look like some PRN was working, they gained some positions. But they were just kind of moving the player around. Overtime is down just a little bit.
I think the only thing we're, here, as I think, with Mr. Dennis,
This. It was $35,000, 35, then 45.56 for the month, correct, of February.
that's the third.
And that's overtime expense, that has nothing to do with salary or the regular pay.
Their salaries are the 130.
Shows it right here.
So
Yes, sir.
if that's gonna be an average number, you can take care of any months we got left in this budget and figure out what this end number is gonna look like.
Not a,
Actually giving you any idea of why we can't find some way to reconcile this?
Well, let me just say that I'm reviewing all of our options going forward. That's about all I can say at the present time.
You know, we didn't have this problem last year, they went over a little, not this kind of money.
well, Mr. Board, in mentioning that, don't forget, I think we put 6 cents roughly into the EMS committee, the EMS budget this year from debt service. We moved 6 cents from 151 into the 118 this year's budget. So even though it may have been over a little bit last year, it was anticipated to have some over just because we moved 6 cents in this year's budget. So it's that 6 cents plus what we're going to be living with here and having to make up. Because as Mr. Dennis said, there is, if that continues at that same rate, we're gonna be looking at a pretty heavy deficit.
If you ain't got nobody to put in the seat. Somebody got to cover, or there won't be nobody on ambulance. When you call for the ambulance, it won't be there. So they won't be sitting there. You can't get nobody to hire nobody.
But what I was doing, we were saying that, we won't go into that conversation now, but from the last conversation I was told in an EMS committee meeting that they were at full staff. And I know that has probably changed a little bit since, but 35,000 is a pretty heavy overtime number on what it, I think it's 18 employees if I counted that up correctly, at 56 hours of overtime scheduled in a month. But it's something we're going to see in the next few weeks. That
We've had some good years. I mean, we got lucky, but all of a sudden Metro started hiring and they just took all the Galveston's and Lebanon's people, and Lebanon took, and Galveston took all our people. So, you know.
Well, we'll have to, depending on what the county commission does in Galveston. Because they're looking at removing hazardous pay from their first responders. And I was told by an authority that if that happens, paramedics will be easy to find. If that happens.
Summit County is looking at removing hazards back from that.
Yeah.
Understood.
Actually,
Well, it's definitely something that I'm glad our committee's eyes are on. We're going to have to see. As we can tell, we would be expecting to see a transfer. Hopefully, there can be, most of those dollars can be found inside the EMS budget. Hopefully. We shall see. I've looked through that pretty heavy today myself. All right, moving on. I think it's something we need to continue to get some understanding of. It looks like our county is looking into that as we're working through these pieces. The 121 is mostly, I guess, pass through money. There was a contract there this year. I think there's some 300,000, if I'm not mistaken, it comes out of that from the prison board too.
Well, yes, but that doesn't come out of this fund at all.
Correct. It's kind of like, but this fund is pure pass through money.
You're faster.
I did have that same question on the, where is that money, that 300,000, where is it sitting? I'm gonna ask Cindy on a few of these items. Interest wise, what are we farming that out at to get us some of those answers?
300,000 in your 171, your capital projects fund. It's not reported on, it's not a budgeted fund, it's kind of just sitting there until we use it right now.
What we're doing, capital projects. All right, moving on to 122. County General Fund.
It's pretty well as the past, there.
Pretty well, yes, sir. $151 debt service.
Rates keep creeping up.
I think the last piece, it seemed that they were projecting another increase at the end of the month, first of April. It had a little decline there, but now it's 1 month of decline, basic. Heading back to you might notice that red figure there, the 114,840, a budgeted loss. I think I'd asked Miss Amy about that one before a meeting here. We had actually, in our budget, had budgeted 200, I think it was 247. To be a 247 loss is what we had budgeted from debt service. So in our budget, there was a budgeted loss. We passed that. You'd notice a similar that every now and then it happens. There was actually a budgeted loss in the 118. If you notice that as well, we budgeted 130 change thousand loss in that one this year. In other words, we had expected revenues to come in 130,000 less than the expenditures. Nothing in the 151 conversation on. I think if we check on this, there was only 2 of these that are actually drawing on a variable interest rate, if I'm not mistaken. Only 2 of these are actually on the variable interest rate. Might be something for us to consider. Seeing where our interest on our dollars is, where our interest on debt is, to see if that's worth knocking down some of those payments. Moving over 131 highway fund. Pretty much past it. The county has a small portion there, as you'll see. Road gym expenses moved. Wiley. 141 school. Any questions or concerns here? If not, we'll move into budget amendments. Let's see, we have three coming our way. First one is a urban service draw. I think we've all seen the work that's going on. There, the interchange of where 141 meets. Any questions on that? We got most of your information. I assume this bid is still good. It said after 10 days, it was able to be.
Mhm. And I asked Mr. Salih to be here for any questions that you might have.
Which, what do you know, this bid is still good? I know it said after 10 days, it could be pulled or
It
changed.
was updated this morning.
All right, thank you, sir. The price of progress. Maybe that'll help out the wait time there for some of the pieces. School traffic, sure time. Would you want to make a motion of approval?
Chairman, just a question. The battery backups and the things, the new system that is taking place right here with these lights. Will it be able to be programmed to certain times of the day to allow Highway 25 traffic priority to come through town? Because I know we've got a pretty big backup that's happening daily down around the 141 intersection and 25. Just a question. With the lights and the money that these cost, does it include any kind of updated computer system so that we can program those lights accordingly, or?
Yes, sir. All of them are updated. These will have the new radar, read lights on them. They'll be able to tell when there's traffic in the directions, and it'll be programmed to the school traffic. Right now, the reason the backups are is all the service lines are cut in the road. So the controller has no idea where the traffic actually is. And that's why you're seeing these long backups. As soon as we get the new lights in place, you'll start seeing a big change in the traffic.
Needs to be.
The battery backups are just for storms and that kind of stuff. I mean, the sheriff can test it, you know, they have storm outages with no lights down there. It's a very dangerous traffic situation. I stay up with them at nights when they're out. And these lights, the battery backups are usually 4 to 6 hours good, and 2 to 4 years on the service light before we have to replace the battery. So it's pretty good system.
Does the committee wish to take any action on favorable?
I'll make a motion to approve forward.
Second.
Motion second for favorable recommendation forwarded to the committee or the full commission. All those in favor, let me know by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Motion approved. Next one, you got a 141. It's the transfer. Revenue from Tennessee Department of Education. Completing youth risk behavior survey at the high school. amount of $500. Looks like it's just money coming from the Department of Education.
Second.
We've got, that'll work. I was gonna say we've got two of these, but that'll work fine. Motion approved, motion and a second. Favorable recommendation. All those in favor, let it know by stating aye. Any opposed? Motion is approved. Next is also 141. Vocational education program. Supporting post-secondary access to rural communities. Grant at TCAT for summer bridge program. I did not get any more information than that. If you need it, I can.
Motion approved.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve, motion and seconded, I'll let it by. All those in favor, let me know by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed by nay? Motion is approved. We have come to the end of our agenda. We do have. Some conversation here on. I did want to ask what, the committee think about some dates in the April, 1st of May. Is there a date that is, doesn't fit for you all? I want to try to get about 4 nights, 5 nights in there that we'll try to look at for budget hearings. I think budgets have been asked to be turned in by the end of March. Somewhere roughly the end of March. From each of the county departments.
It was like the first or second week, I actually say.
I think it was the last week of April, 1st of May.
I also need time to get all the numbers compiled.
Our meeting was the 24th. Commission meeting.
Commission meetings.
How would that 25th, 26th, 27th of April, 1st and 2nd of May, look at that's a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and so the last week of April, 25th, 26th, 27th, first week of May, the 1st and 2nd. How do those look to everyone? Anybody have trouble with Wednesday night more than anything? So we call those will be all right to get everybody meet. Mr. Gregory, what time? I know you got some trouble sometimes with
This time of year 6,
6 week time.
as long as that's on Monday, then you said Tuesday, so we do.
Tuesdays.
Well, there would be one Monday on that
Yes.
first.
Yeah,
You want to move that to the second, third?
I hear lately, I mean, it's been good anyways.
We can talk on those bases. I just want to get committee's thoughts on those nights. So right now, that's kind of the range we're thinking, that those 2 week range right there. Try to get in 4 to 5 nights, depending on what comes to us and where we need to adjust. We won't set those as solid right now, Miss Amy and I'll talk and we'll get a plan. Just want to make sure the meeting's all good. If a Wednesday got called or 2 Wednesdays got called.
It don't look like it is for everybody in other meetings, so.
No, it doesn't. That 24th is the Monday night of commission meeting, so of April and the 25th, 26th, 27th will be the next following that week. All right, with that, extra conversation, any public comment?
I got a comment.
No, you sir.
Thought about this for some time. I thought I'd bring it up. Why don't we go ahead and try to get our wheel tax passed now and start storing some money for the jail that we know we're gonna have to build. If we get it done now, before this thing falls in over it, then it would give, if it goes through, then we'll have a good idea of what we're going to do with property tax. I know last year I asked 4 different times, why didn't we go ahead and approve it in the county court meeting? And it never happened. And always I got the answer, well, we don't know how much. It ain't gonna matter how much, because you're gonna get a certain amount, and that's all you're gonna get. I think it's time that we give a strong consideration to trying to get our wheel tax back in place. Here tag it for nothing but the bill. Before we ear tagged it for the school, and it passed. Not by a huge majority, but it passed. It's money that we could be laying back into the building fund. Even though it's not on us yet, but it's coming. And if we wait and all that winds up having to go to property owners, we're still talking about a sizable amount of money. Somewhere 50 to 65 cents. If we can get the wheel tax in, we can cut that down maybe 10 cents. We know about what it's going, we know about what a $40 wheel tax brought in. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 350 is the name. Is that how much?
354,
That's what I say, it's about 350. So if we went with a $75 or $80, a 75 would put us somewhere around 600,000 safely. And that means then we got to come up with another enough to make up the difference by another 1.4 million.
Mr. Ford, I see what I think you're mentioning more of a capital outlay fund
Yeah.
that it is assigned to.
Absolutely.
I think it's definitely something I've been discussing in my mind a little bit, I guess you would say, for a little while. I would like us to have more of a true plan, what we're talking exactly, written out before we start having that discussion. Here's what I want to present for us to talk on.
But when are we going to do that?
I think it's coming sooner than, I think it needs to come sooner, as you said.
It needs to come sooner than I think.
I've been researching it and seeing what the other counties' wheel taxes are. Like Sumner County's $51, Macon's 65, Metro's 55, Wilson County's only 25. Of course, Smith and Trousville, neither one of us have one at this time, but I did find out that Macon is looking at raising theirs again.
They're approaching $100.
Yes,
Back up too.
Lake County's the highest county in the state of Tennessee, if you research it, and they pay $100. Of course, that's real good. They're a small county like us.
And we've got other things besides this jail gonna be coming out for very long.
That's
We're
well,
gonna need to lose inside of all that.
well,
I'm just saying, we don't need to wait till we need it to do it. County court can pass it provided nobody bucks it. If they do, they put it to referendum, we're not gonna get a dime.
that's one reason I said, in my mind, it needs to be very well presented. What's our plan? How's it gonna be laid out? What's the purpose? And well stated to the people. Because they need to know what is the purpose for why we're asking for this tax. And that's true. What we're
Well,
looking at.
it's either do something to help the property owners, and you're looking 38% of the people having to foot all this bill. That's not right. They have to pay for that high school, they all have to pay for the jail. It ain't just property owners going in that jail. A lot of other people going in that jail.
That's where we're getting some interesting conversation at that point. So, but if not, I did miss a piece. Miss Amy, glad she corrected me here. I apologize. Miss Amy had sent over that our audit fund balances came out in the first of the year audit. Any pieces there on that financial report piece of the balance report? Notice that the 101 had a substantial loss net change there. Approaching 600,000.
I just want that we gotta pay off completely now. That's where the real tax is going to. $70, the balance was transferred over to 151 pay for the most.
So that's why it shows 385, it's really not a lot. I was asking there on the 385, 648, and educated balance. These are why they showing negative. That fund originally was for the high school. Payoff where the wheel tax was going into, I think, at this point. But that money was a transfer, so it kind of shows a negative there, but it's a negative, nothing was transferred out of there and put into the, remember our middle school group. First payment was the counties. Remember here, it was projecting our ending balance there of the 151 was strong, but as you'll notice now, we're negative. Well, this money changed there and some people. One of those reasons would be we took money out of every penny we took out of anywhere last year came from debt service. I think some went to solid waste and some went, majority went into e-test. Got one statement on the back there, 41, the audit findings as well.
No, that's not actually audit finding, that is proposing the school revenues for the upcoming year. We have the obligation to set their revenues, that's what that.
I'll just do it. I apologize. There's a setting on the range.
So the budget committee is able to set their revenues, so we can get those numbers over to the schools, so they can get their budget put together for us to review whenever we have our hearings.
So this would be an initial revenue setting.
And it is just an initial setting. We can change those numbers throughout the process. But they do need kind of an idea of what we're looking at. Looks like by April 1st, and then they have to get their budget to us by May 1st. That is actually just a number I had set. It's not based on that number that he gave me. So I kind of I just put a placeholder in there so we would have a final balance of total local taxes. What my suggestion is, and I have no say, this is all on y'all, just making sure that is stated. We've set more as a percentage of property tax for the schools instead of a penny value or an amount. In case there is an increase in property taxes, if the commission decides that, then that number can change. And it's not just a set, well, you're only going to get 1.5 million. They could get 1.7, depending on the percentage that you would like to set for them. And then the rest of the numbers, it's really mainly the same thing from year to year. The three numbers that change, well, really two numbers that change are your current property tax, the 4110, and then your local option sales tax also changes. They are scheduled to get 50% of whatever sales tax comes in.
So currently, I guess what we can be looking at here is just setting the revenues. We can discuss that percentage change from pennies to percentage at a later time in the speech, but setting just revenues at this current piece. just so that the school board can have a number to work with to start their budget off with.
We cannot tell them how to spend their money. We can only set these numbers here in front of you.
Any questions there?
Was this, amount here, 973,204, is that what we collected in 22?
That is what is currently budgeted for this year.
And we only, school gets what, 53% of that?
No, that is the, or 50%.
That is very interesting.
Okay, that is.
Yes, ma'am.
In June, ending June 2022, they had received 1,046,000. And that's that second column. The original budget for 2022 was 675.
Last year's budget was the 973.
The current year.
This current year.
Mhm.
We're looking at next year's
Right.
conversation that we're already transferring that.
And that's why during the budget hearings, I said, instead of adjusting their property tax, I suggested to adjust their sales tax to keep within what they were asking for. So obviously, they were going way above 675,000.
It's the will of the body. Like, this is a number to send over as a preliminary budgeting number before we're talking about for revenues here in this case. That's what we're saying here, that what the county thinks at this point. We don't have a penny value in, we don't have those pieces, we're just kind of taking an opportunity to give what we think revenues will be close to.
In previous years, their percentage of the property tax has been 25.97. So if you wanted just to say 26% of the property tax will go to the schools, that is a fair statement.
As I stated earlier, on this, my personal view was that we look over the percentage conversation at a later time, and we send this on a penny by. We can have that discussion on percentages at a later time, but right now we're talking about not just revenue pieces on the penny value.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
And looking at the numbers, nothing seems terribly out of line. And with this being a preliminary statement for them to get started to send us real numbers, I'll make a motion that we send this. So that they can get started.
Making sure we understand, we're not sending the 25%, is that what you're saying? Okay. Just the numbers, the revenue.
Just the numbers there.
I just want to be clear what you want. All right, so in this case, we have a motion and a second to approve the send it forward. What's the will of the body? All of in favor, let me know by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed by stating nay? Motion carries. Let you copy that. All right, now we are at public comment. If there might be.
I just have a question, if I may.
Yes, ma'am.
You guys have discussed the wheel tax, but no action has been taken. So where does it go from here?
I think it's something that we'll have to put together and bring back up.
Who's gonna put together and bring it back?
Didn't seem like it was ended at that point yet. I know conversations on myself, as I said, I've been looking at it myself to bring up. and
I'm
bring
just
out.
curious where it's going. And that's all I'm saying.
I don't think it left here anywhere. At this point. I don't think it left anywhere for me at this point.
And so this committee doesn't necessarily want it to go anywhere else.
I don't think it was said that part. I think it
I'm
was,
just asking.
I think it was just left at this point as a conversation getting started that needed to happen. I didn't hear it sent or moved anywhere. Might be wrong with what I heard. All right, any other comments? If not, entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, and second. Let me know by saying aye.
Uh,
All right, adjourned.